Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Showing Up Whole, the place where we discuss alignment in mind, body, heart, and spirit in every aspect of our lives. And today we are diving into a really exciting conversation because we are talking to Robin Rose Bennett. And we are talking all about being a witch and some beautiful magic. Robin is a storyteller, writer, and herbalist. She shares earth wisdom with gratitude for the magic and mystery of the web of life. She's the author of Healing Magic, a green witch's guidebook to conscious living, and the gift of healing herbs, plant medicines, and home remedies for a vibrantly healthy life, and the forthcoming A Young Green Witch's Guide to Plant Magic, Rituals and Recipes from Nature. And her most recent book, which we'll be talking about today, is called A Green Witch's Pocket Book of Wisdom. So, everyone, let's talk all about being a witch. Hi, Robin. It's lovely to be talking with you and to be sharing in your magic. And I can't wait to dive into this conversation.
Thank you, Christina. Thanks for having me here. It's delightful to be with you.
Oh, well, it's really delightful to have you. So, this is such a wide, wondrous, magical topic. And I will say I've been reading your new offering, your new book, and thank you so much for sending that. And it's what I love about what I've read so far is the beautiful intertwining between the understanding of earth magic and yet the conscious living and lightness that you bring to it. You really do bring this sense of presence. I think people have a tendency to feel like being a witch or practicing witchcraft is something that's so distant and not integrating into your everyday life in a lot of ways. So it really feels like in your work, I will say I congratulate you on how present it feels and how embodied it feels. So it's a really beautiful offering. So thank you for that. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey into earth magic and being able to actually call yourself a witch? What does that journey look like?
Okay. All right. And what I'm going to do, and I think that it will be audible, I'm going to light some grandmother's cedar.
Ooh,
Just a sec. Let's see. Hear it crackle.
oh, that's beautiful.
Right. It's a beautiful, beautiful um, herb for, it's often called like for protection, but as we grow into understanding that to be woven into the web of life as our unique
Mhm.
selves, but into the oneness, it's like, well, are we protecting ourselves from ourselves? So, one of the things I like to think about it as is this is a plant that helps us move into divine alignment.
Oh, beautiful.
And divine alignment, right, is when we are walking in divine alignment in truth, that
Mhm.
is its own, it means its own protection. So when you ask about my journey, I can say that I kind of started from a place, and that's this life, um, of not feeling at all safe in this world, not really feeling thrilled to be back in a body again, and vulnerable as a woman, and so many aspects of this and things that made sense in my life and things that didn't make sense on the surface when you looked at the stability of my home and the
Mhm.
safety of where I was, growing up, and the love that I was surrounded by. Really, I wasn't like in an abusive home or anything, far from it. And yet I did carry those feelings very strongly, which, now I think of it as have come from other times, and also from an empathetic reaction or response to the kind of, at that point, unconscious kinship I felt with everyone and everything,
Mm.
and
Mhm.
had no idea how to understand it,
Mhm.
right? So I was very self-protective, very private in my emotional expression and all these things as a young girl, but it didn't necessarily show. Anyway, just I'm saying that from things other people tell me. Oh, how we perceived you was, you were confident. You
Relate to
were
that. Yes, I definitely relate to that. When I tell people that have any insecurities, I do often get people going, nah.
nah, right. Yes, please understand that I work really
Yeah.
diligently, right,
Yeah.
to be conscious and confident and so
Mhm.
forth. So, but in terms of the journey, so then as a teen, I was in college in Northern California, which was really like a mecca of everything quote unquote alternative and magical and spiritual or hippie, whatever you want to call it, right? I was a little after the official hippie years,
Mhm.
but nonetheless, that energy of, braids and Birkenstocks. And then I I did explore it, but essentially what happened was I met two wondrous teachers, two absolutely wonderful teachers who are now ancestors, June and Jim. Their life story is a fascinating one that we won't go into, or it'll take our whole time together. They had a huge age difference. I'll just pique people's interest with that. She was elder, and they fell in love.
Mm.
And I worked with them for over a decade. And I started very young. I was really like, I don't know, 18 or something like that. And they were deep. Like they were doing work that is not like designed to get you onto like, every news show that exists or what have you, right? They were, first of all, they were ahead of their time. And second of all, their work was deep. It was about embracing your wholeness through really illuminating your shadows
Mm.
and coming to accept them, right?
Mhm.
So not trying to be like spiritual, like it's all only light,
Mm.
it's all only good, right? But nonetheless, so moving forward. Oh, but I will say that on my website, I do have a link to a site of their work that some of
Okay.
their students who were devoted to them created to keep their teachings alive. So
Yeah.
there, people can
Brilliant.
go to there.
Brilliant.
But anyway, so I met these wonderful teachers. I worked with them for a long time. I began to teach for them. And ultimately, I saw that there was still a disconnect in me between that, what you spoke of, Christina, that grounded, embodied, daily experience
Mm.
of this magic of interconnection that we were exploring spiritually all the time.
Mm.
So that led me to go into a study of herbalism, having no conscious knowledge that I had a great grandmother who was a renowned herbalist.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, I really loved discovering that because I thought all of my ancestry was spiritual ancestry.
Mm.
I didn't know I had any physical
Yeah.
bloodline of this. So anyway, I did learn about her after I'd been an herbalist for about 10 years
Oh, my.
in New York City, I might add. In New York City, the beautiful island of Manhattan, as the native people called it,
Beautiful.
or still call it, and which means land of wild strawberries, by the
Mm.
way. And so that marriage began to happen immediately of, I no longer want just these transcendent moments of highs in my life, right? And I mean, they were beautiful, don't
Mhm.
get me wrong. They were just like, wow, and love to the point where your heart's flying open and tears are streaming down your face, right? But not sustainable, daily, and again, kind of still in that hierarchical
Mhm.
understanding of like spirituality as being something above,
Mhm.
or emotion, very Western thinking as well, right? The
Mhm.
mind is higher than the feelings are higher than, and so
Yep.
forth, right? And the body bleh, leads the all.
Yeah.
So coming into herbalism through a green witch. So I originally just was looking for an herbal class, and I found this and I found that. But when I came to the approach of a green witch, it was, ah, this is this is it. And so what I mean by this is it is one of the first things I learned was that the plants are the teachers. The plants are the teachers. They have if I can learn how to listen, right? And so this
Mhm.
is what being a green witch means to me, right? It's about opening to um, well, so many things, but in particular, I see a green witch as a person who, often a woman, but not always, right? Who is awakened to the magic of nature, right? And she or they may express that as an herbalist,
Mhm.
as a painter, as a gardener, as a mother. It's like it's not an automatic pilot of, well, that means you work
Yeah,
with plants. It's more than that,
that's
right? It's
beautiful.
more than that. And it's like the greatest side effect of herbal medicine that I see for people over these decades that I've now been sharing, um, is an awakening of kinship,
Mm. To nature.
you know,
Yeah.
with the natural world. And that these deepening relationships with plants and animals and so forth and birds actually informs and then enhances our relationships with other people.
Of course it does. Of course it does.
Of
We're
course it
all
does.
nature. Yeah.
We are nature, exactly. We are nature, but it's also just the way, like, where if we started from safety or not safety, grandmother cedar, helping one feel their body a sacred space,
Hmm.
right? Is that plants are generous and loving beings, right?
Mm.
And one of the greatest realizations I've had that has shifted how I live my life is that the plants know who they are.
Mm.
The
Yeah.
plants really know exactly who they are. Sorry about that.
Don't worry. That's fine. Yeah. Life
And
happens.
okay. So they know who they are. And when we take them into ourselves in herbal medicine with gratitude and respect, they help us know who we are.
Yeah, that's
They help us
beautiful.
know ourselves.
That's beautiful. I think my son would like to really love to hear this because he's 14 and he's a nature fanatic. He does it with photography. That's his thing. He loves taking nature photography. And it's a fascinating thing, as you said, that you can be a green witch and it's not just about herbalism. It's about that connection to the surrounding world. And I think that's such a beautiful.
Exactly. And as a photographer, right, your son is doing the thing that, whether we're looking through a lens or we're not, he's seeing.
Exactly.
And if we will stop and take the time to see a dandelion,
Yeah.
right, like the whole world opens up, the exquisite patterns of nature,
Yeah.
it opens us up. And we must open and awaken in this time of chaos and evolution. Well, I call it the evolutionary chaos of now.
Yes. Very well phrased.
Thank you. Right, we're really in this profoundly pivotal moment,
Mm,
right? So everything, anything that we do for ourselves or one another, right, it ripples out into the world, right, for good
yeah.
or ill.
Yeah.
And to be able to actually see is presence.
Absolutely. And it's a fascinating thing. I find um, nature such a resilient force that I think we so often just take for granted. It's I've seen it in so many different times. Everything from how you can work really hard in tending it and leave it for like a little bit and all of a sudden it takes over and has its own mind. So there's that version of resilience, which, you know,
My
can be
gardens
frustrating.
reflect that right now.
Yes. But at the same time too, my husband and I, we were actually away in our trailer for about 10 days, and we were away from Wi-Fi and from any busyness, and we came back to our house, and as soon as we got back in, we're like, oh, I feel something. I feel this buzziness in my body just from general Wi-Fi in the house. I noticed a big
Absolutely.
difference. And yet then we looked around and we were sitting outside and we looked at, and we have loads of plants in our house and we were looking, we're like, you know, they still are thriving and growing and they just adapt. And there's an adaptability, there's a flow, that there's this inner force within nature that just is. And
That's
no
right.
matter the evolutionary chaos, it's not sitting there responding, throw anything at it. And it just goes, okay, I can adapt. I can adapt. I can adapt. And it's this beautiful lesson. There's such a deep wisdom within it
There's
that,
such a deep, and there's
yeah,
such a like a guidance system
there
for
is.
us. Like the answers of how to move ourselves to a new ancient way of being on the
Yeah.
planet together. It's all here,
Yeah.
right? It's all here. And you look in that mirror of nature's adaptability and flexibility, and there we are, right? But we need to rally enough will,
Mm-hmm.
right? And willingness,
Yeah.
right?
And faith.
And faith, yeah, to shift, right? Like, oh, who's that famous Will Durant, right?
Mm,
A historian who said, the gardener, right? Basically, to plant a garden is a sign of faith in the future,
mm-hmm.
right? Plant a garden is a sign of faith in the future. And he also said, which I love, he said, whenever I think that my work is terribly important, I know that I'm getting close to a nervous breakdown. So I think that's a marvelous, marvelous
Yeah.
thing because you can get so like earnest and ooh, about, the need and the da 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 da. And really, if we don't do our thing with joy, it's not shifting the paradigm. It's not
It's not.
shifting.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's the plants give us that too, and this yeah, and I hear you too though about coming in after you've been out. It's really profound. I've experienced that too with when there's been a power outage.
Mm.
And like, let's face it, we're doing this because we have,
Be-
right, this
Yeah.
technology.
Yeah.
I appreciate
I
it.
deeply appreciate that. Yes.
Mm. And yet when there's been a power out, it's like this whole different level of ah
Yeah.
happens
Absolutely.
in our bodies because actually electricity itself shifts molecularly the hemoglobin in our blood. It actually shifts it. So,
Yeah.
which is why when you walk out into the woods, right?
Mhm.
That's one of the main reasons why when you walk into the woods away from, you know, um, electricity, etc., right? You immediately can, or you begin at least to wind
Oh,
down. Right. The more
interesting.
like when I lived in the city for 10 years, they called me the Green Witch of New York City. Ha ha ha. When New York Magazine did a piece and they said that, and it's just stuck to this day, even though I live an hour out of Manhattan and have lived out of Manhattan now for, a while, like decades. It's still that title
Amazing.
stuck, which is, it's kind of fun. It's
It
kind
is
of,
fun. It is fun. And I think it's fun. And yet it's such an honor, I do believe, because really to have that recognized even within a city, like to have it as it shows how strong of resonance that you had in that space. And that's definitely a huge compliment.
yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
huge compliment.
Wasn't like a popular trending fatty thing at that point either yet at all.
No. Like,
Like it,
actually, let's can we touch a little bit on that? Because this is something that often comes up. And I know before we hit record, we were talking about it. I guess the question is, how did you feel comfortable stepping into calling yourself a green witch?
no, of course not.
Okay. Well, I always like to ask.
Um, I shouldn't say of course. I shouldn't say of course not. But the answer is no, because when I would say it, I mean, people would be confused and sometimes repelled or frightened or so and of course that can still happen, but it's not as it was then. But I guess it depends what circles you go into,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
But I read something so I have on my YouTube channel, I have a really fun teeny tiny short video called of a haiku that I wrote called "The Witch Persists." And if I can remember it by memory, I will share it with those listening to
Good.
us either right now or in perpetuity. I just don't, it's a haiku, so I have to have it, I have to say it right. So, but I'll come back to that in a minute. But in the video, most of the response to it has been very positive. But
Hmm.
there was like one comment recently that was, really, really off the wall nasty.
Oh,
And I then my best friend sent me a quote, and I think it's so brilliant. And the quote was, "They taught us to be afraid of the witches rather than of the people who burned them."
yes, I've heard
I
that.
think that's the problem.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
And
I would,
when I read that the first time, it hit me hard because it's like it's true. It's true.
yeah. And
It's
it has lingered. It's definitely lingered. The other thing is I have found, Christina, that the green softens it.
well, and this is what I was actually curious. Do you always say green witch?
Always. Absolutely always.
Okay.
Oh, because it's a better, like, honestly, I don't care what label someone gives me. I am aligned and it was so many traditions, and I just feel like a citizen of the world. Um, so, but in these times, right, and you're putting yourself out there, you have to call yourself something.
Yeah.
So that is the term that best, well, writer. I'm
Hmm.
not an herbalist who writes books. I'm a writer who's also an herbalist, because the writing is the from the earliest part of me. Although I say that, and I found and I'm going to go back to what I was saying, but I just, a little aside, I found a photograph, old family thing, and I am tiny. I don't know. Maybe I'm two, maybe. And I am right. It was an old video, which in those days was like a Super 8, I believe, 8 millimeter. Right. And I'm running up to the camera, and I'm holding out a dandelion flower, like right into the camera. And I was like, oh, see, so I
It's
might not
always
have
been there.
there. It's always been there. And apparently I did like to um, not have clothes on whenever possible. So that's part of the,
That's awful. The green witch. Yeah, it's coming out. Well, and
wildness.
I think that's actually an interesting place to take it, because this is actually a conversation that I've been having with my son, and this is something that I went through in my 20s as well, that it's very easy to want a label of something. And I think we all go through periods of time that we want a label. And yet it's really important to find the label that matches who you really are, your natural sense of yourself, and
Mhm.
what you feel called to, versus having a label that then you bend yourself or bend your own beliefs. And it sounds so taken for granted when you say it, but it is phenomenal how often people say, well, I want to be a witch. And so therefore then it's like, I will study to how to be a witch, where really, from what I'm hearing with you, it's a question of really diving deep within yourself in order to uncover
Yeah,
your own witch.
right, who you are, right? Your own wild, wise woman or wise person, wise being, right?
Yeah.
It's both. It's wildness, it's wiseness, or wisdom rather.
Yeah.
Um, and the other thing about, choosing to take on that word was a very conscious choice on my part. I really looked at it. I thought about it in terms of like, how I was writing about myself. I didn't know I was going to end up with all these books that were a green witch is this and a green witch is that, but the choice was to own it because it has been used as a weapon historically,
Ah,
right? It has been used as a weapon. Somebody, and I, even to this day, a friend was telling me about a custody battle where he's going through it, and the wife is, someone's being accused of being a witch, right, as an actual way to keep children from them. And believe it or not, this is not the first time I've heard this. I wish it was. But so as kind of cool, right, as it is right now, it's, which it
it's still
is.
under undercurrent, and all things churn polarized in many ways. And we lived in a very polarized time.
Yeah, we do. So wait, let me
And
just make sure I
yeah,
finish this thought. So the how I was thinking about it was, so if this has been used to silence healers in the
Mm,
past, if this has been used to silence midwives, herbalists, very, death doulas, which were not called that then, right? But the
mhm,
wise is this used to silence the wise women,
mhm,
then by owning it, it's defanging it, it's taking the weaponization of it out, because then somebody says you're a witch, and I'm like, well, yeah,
yeah. Mm,
my books,
yeah.
it's on my website, it's in all my art, yeah, yeah. And so what else is new, right?
Yeah.
And so it just takes that power
Mhm,
out of it, right? And so it's owning the actual power of it and
mhm.
taking the destructive power out of it. And of course, people have different definitions, especially eccentric people like herbalists and witches, of what it means, right? But I can only speak to, my sense of my lineage and how I live it.
So what was what would be the advice that you offer to people? I changed my question halfway through. There we go. What would be the advice that you would offer people based on your own experience as they I was actually just talking to a client and she was talking about how she has like the witch book. She's just kind of cracking open, all the different books about being a witch. And her husband's kind of like, what are you looking at? Kind of thing. And she's like, I don't even know. And she's like, I feel called to read these things. And of course, there's
Yeah.
things like Lisa Litzner's book on witch, and it's like there's all these different concepts of being a witch, and like you said, it's the cool term now. And yet, it's almost like I think there's this interesting space where people are now questioning how they approach the word witch. They feel uncomfortable with the word witch. Then they go, well, that must be my witch's wound. So therefore, they pursue it with a little bit more force, perhaps, or a little bit more determination. And yet, it's still this kind of push and pull. It's this little bit of without fully embodying it. I'm not sure if there's a question here, but it is a question of they don't know how to fully assimilate it within themselves because it feels like it's part of the battle over here, a witch wound versus becoming the witch, about divine feminine versus the patriarchy. It becomes the outward topic versus the how do you actually become a witch
Right. Like it's not
in the
about wearing a cape. It's not about
no it and it's not even about doing the stuff. It's about actually seeing through, allowing the perception of a witch to become your worldview.
yeah, that's true. I mean, it's, the thing about human beings, one of the things about human beings is that we tend to be impatient,
Mm-hmm.
and we tend to, like, like you said, all one or all another, and set up, the polarizing and the battles and the stuff. But really, coming into yourself by whatever name is a process,
Mm.
and it takes place over time. And, I think the most important thing in terms of going back to the advice question is, one is is discover through your explorations, whether it's through conversations like this or books or, or your granny, right? Discover practices and processes that help you hear and discern true inner guidance, like that. And even herbally, that's what I tell my clients too. I don't want you to take this because I'm telling you to. I want you can start there, right? But then I need you to be in relation with what you're doing and to feel, is this helping your indigestion? Is How does this herb feel, taste to you, and so forth? But now going right back to where we
Mm-hmm.
were. So discovering that, what helps you find your inner voice. This is much more important than, like, is this the right color candle to use for such and such spell? That's, I mean, but you could have fun with it. It's like it is the the outward trappings
Hmm.
can be distractions, right? Which I think is kind of what your question was
Yes.
getting at. The caution I like to give people, whether they're studying witchcraft or Buddhism or you name it, anything, is if somebody says to you overtly or covertly that they have the only way or they are the only conduit for you to come into yourself,
Hmm.
walk the other way.
100%.
Walk the other way. That is the one. And then the other thing is, because there is no one
Yeah.
right way, but I said, find the practices that help you hear your inner wisdom, your inner guidance. But one of the things very specifically I want to mention is learn how to be in your body and then listen to your body, because bodies tell the truth. Bodies are the most honest part of ourselves, right? They really are. This is something I've learned. And like I said, it's not where I started. I was all about transcendence and
Hmm.
high spiritual experiences and visions, oh my, right? But coming back into the body, not only brought me into a place of much more sustainable joy at being alive, which I can then share, which is wonderful,
Mm.
but also into the experience ongoing of having my own truth barometer that I walk around with, right? And
That's
that's
beautiful.
really important.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's beautiful. It's from what I'm hearing, and this is such an interesting thing because I've never actually gone in this conversation before like this, but it feels like if you were to define the idea of being a witch, it was someone who listens
Yeah, that's part of it. I think that's a big piece of it.
because
Mhm.
and I think that maybe that's why we get into these things with the concept of being a witch is it feels like it's someone who does those outward trappings in order to create things that happen. But the thing is that what people often forget is that before even doing a ritual, there's a moment of listening so that you know the right ritual to do. You know what is integral to that moment. And please correct me if I'm wrong on this.
Well, I think it's a part of it. I don't think it's all of it because, it's, um, I think it's an essential part of it, the listening, but I think feeling
Mm,
is essential, seeing, and it doesn't mean somebody could be blind and still see,
yes.
right? That's why we have our third eye, which I like to call our first eye.
Yeah,
Um,
100%. Absolutely.
it's we can't leave out the web of life, right? We can't weave out all right, to listen, you have to have something to listen to, right? So
Mm,
it does automatically suggest that, but it's really about relational perception, and very much I think this is a vital piece, is it's about learning how to have power with, right, rather than dominate or rather than power over, right? So I think some people maybe, well, certainly people can associate witchcraft with you want power over me, but that's not, now here I'm going to just be super opinionated. That's not a real witch. That's not a real witch. That is just not,
yeah.
right? Because it's, it, you know, yeah, it's not wise to command anything or really even to manipulate, right? Like my first spiritual teacher said, the universe gets the final word. And I have found that to be true approximately 1,000% of the time.
Join the club. Absolutely.
It's so much, it's learning to ask, right? Like
Yeah.
even in terms of healing, right? And when I teach a lot about self-care, but part of self-care doesn't mean you do everything yourself. It means you ask for help. You learn to ask for help. I see way too many healers who almost pride themselves on, oh, that's hard for me. Oh, I can't do that. I'm like, well, then how can you ask people to come to you in their vulnerability
Mm.
if you're not learning how to do that? Like that's important.
Yeah,
That's important. So
absolutely.
yeah, listening is a huge piece of the, but it's the reweaving too, right? In being part of the web. And I mean, to me, it's like once you start to feel that, then it's absolutely natural that compassion grows,
Mm.
right? It's absolutely natural that the best aspects of our humanity begin to flower, right? We don't have to make it happen, right? But it's like one thing leads to another. It's like the out breath that follows the in breath. It happens.
Right,
That's another way you can know you're on the right path, if you're feeling your heart more open.
right. No, that's beautiful. And I think the image, it's so interesting because we talk about the flow of life, we talk about the current of life, we talk the web of life has this beautiful sense of interconnectivity to each other, as well as interconnectivity to divine flow or divine essence or whatever. It's all one.
And mountains and water and
Yes.
flowers and lakes and air and fire and water and earth. It's really opening to the elementals, because now this is well, here's what I've, for me in any event, what I have found is that green witch wisdom is very akin to any indigenous wisdom I've
Mm.
ever had the blessing to be had shared with me,
Uh,
right? It's very
Absolutely.
akin.
Very much
It's
so.
honoring the sentience of all life, from the stone to the, to the river water, right? It's honoring the aliveness in everything. And again, going back to the beginning of my particular journey, right? Because many people find the journey of herbalism takes them into spirit, right?
Mm.
But for me, it was sort of the other way around. The journey of spiritual work brought me down to earth into herbalism. um the Wait a minute, where was I going with it? There was something I was just saying about the yes. So going from this sense of spirit always being something transcendent, like beyond, right, our earthly daily walk, right? But this wisdom, the earth spirit
Hmm.
with in which wisdom, indigenous wisdom, this is about immanence, which is spelled IMMANENCE, immanence, not imminent like coming up soon, or eminent like important, right? But immanence, meaning the spirit, the aliveness contained within
Mm.
every blade of grass. And this is now intersecting with science, right?
Yeah.
Science shows us this, but we haven't culturally caught up,
No.
right? Our medical system for sure hasn't caught up.
No.
And
Oh,
when people say, I only
even
know the science, hmm?
yeah, no, even our medical systems, our structural systems, the way we build, the way we, its entire culture has not been
Right.
able to embrace that kind of
Yeah. And
interconnectedness.
that's why we're in the time when it is crumbling.
Yes,
It,
it is.
you know, it is, I mean, we're in the last dying gasps of this dominator approach to life, right?
Yes.
This dominator cultures that have, taken the you know, the lead around the world.
Mhm.
And obviously there are many beautiful pockets of rebirthing of respect for their own traditions among indigenous groups, among the grandmothers, among wise women, among, various and sundry peoples of
Mhm.
different persuasions who are aware of who we really are. And it's like this wave is growing, and this is how I think of it, is like it's very obvious the deathing that's happening in our time, and what's right under the surface, just right below the, high levels of visibility, is the labor, the contractions
Yeah.
of the birthing of a new way of being in the world. It won't be the same as the old ways of being in relation, because the world has gotten so widely connected. When we were in older times, right, we might live in a healthier way in our village, right? But now our village is connected to the other villages.
Hmm. Yeah.
It's not about going backwards, it's about bringing wisdoms from the past,
Yeah.
right, that are being held alive as little sparks in various places here, there, and everywhere,
Yeah.
right? So it's not in the evening news, and spreading these ways more widely. Um, it's inevitable. To me, it's inevitable. It is like an acorn is inevitably going to grow into an oak tree. We are inevitably evolving. It's just the way it is. It's like you said, you look at nature and you see this resilience and adaptability. We're adapting. We're adapting. And it's just that the status quo is being,
Pushed
you
back.
know, on as tight as humanly possible, which is pretty tight. Um,
Yeah.
thinking only of what they're losing, not of all the new
Yeah.
opportunities that are opening. And that is sad, and destructive. And I think that, there's many paths. Everybody can find their own, what they're here to contribute to this evolution. Um, and together is the way that we will turn it, around. None of us can do this alone, and there's not one path to do it.
Yeah.
It's
It's
all
it,
about
it's interesting
authentic.
because the image that comes forward is, like, when you have the garden slabs. Can you tell I've had a lot of gardens overgrown? You have the garden slabs, which then some plants underneath become so strong that those start to just literally break through. And you look at something like that and you go, how can a small sprout of a plant actually push back? My husband was going through a stage of growing sprouts. And
Uh-huh.
he would just have sprouts growing in the garden, and he'd have these I think they were mung bean sprouts that were growing, and he had them stacked where they were stacked up, and of course he'd water them, and they would have bricks on top of them, and we literally watched as there was times where these plants would literally lift up and they'd be bricks on top, but because there was this multitude of all these growing plants underneath, they could lift up with such strength this brick. And
Yes.
it's phenomenal. And you kind of go, that's what we're in. We're in a time where the concrete slabs are breaking apart and people are running around going, oh my goodness, my garden slab is breaking apart, rather than saying, what is the strength that's underneath here? And how can we support the life force that's
Oh,
underneath that's changing?
yes. Yes. See, and now you bring me to, how do we support the life force? So asking expansive questions is such a good
Yes.
approach, right? I
Oh, I
don't
get
think
chills.
our
Yes.
answers are as important as our questions.
No,
What
I agree.
questions do you want to live by?
Ooh, what
And what
questions do you
questions?
want to live by? That's beautiful. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Because that is how you begin that path of tapping into the web of life of that, and that greater sense of listening, because the answers come, but the questions are what you live by. I love that. That's fantastic.
Thanks. And that's kind of why, or how, in a way, I came to write the Green Witch's Pocketbook,
Mm,
right? Because you asked, how do people proceed? How do they find their, inner, green witch or witch of whatever color?
yeah,
And so you need to have practices. You need to have reminders or things that get you going
questioning.
on your. Yeah. So, in
Yeah.
fact, I'd like to.
Let's
Can
talk about that. I was just going to say, let's now get to your book, because I could just talk to you forever and ever and ever, but I want to make sure that everybody knows about your new book coming up, which is now on a launch
I?
the month of October. It is a pre-launch special. So can you just talk a little bit about that? Because what I love about this book, and I will say, um, it's a passage book. This is a pocket book of it's passages. It's simple uh
Yeah,
daily passages that you can just grab one and let them, it feels like you can let them ruminate and sit within
exactly.
you.
Exactly. It's sort of an oracle on every page.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like a little book, because my hope was, because I like to have like a little book that I just open to and get
Yep.
some guidance, and either about something particular or just give me some guidance for the day. And I have found I do that with this book, A Green Witch's Pocketbook of Wisdom, Big Little Life Tips. And it does weave together the kind of initial teachings that I was studying, right, that were not herbal,
Hmm.
with my herbal, earthy Green
Beautiful.
Witch wisdom. And it's a beautifully illustrated book that I'm very
It
grateful
really
to
is.
my artist,
Yeah,
right,
it
Gail.
really is. Yeah.
Yeah, yes, did a wonderful job. And yeah, my thought was that these are the practices and reminders that working with them have helped me,
Mm.
like, grow myself and grow into myself and how I live my life. And so I wanted to share them because they've stood the test of time. They've stood the test of really horrific losses I've had in my life. They've stood the test of, going through the height of the COVID years, right? Or the
Hmm.
depths of the COVID years, however we want to, look at that. So they've held up.
Beautiful.
They've held up. They've
Yeah.
stood the test of time, and they're, I'm not on any pedestal whatsoever. They're the things I continue to practice, right? That because, growing and learning is forever, as
Absolutely.
long as we're breathing, and that's part of what makes life fun and juicy. And, so
I
so
have to say,
I just
I landed on one of the passages, and you use the word juicy. And I have to say, like anyone who has listened to me for a long period of time, or there was one year that I did my intentional word of the year was actually juicy, because I was like, I want a life that I can just bite into. I want like this juicy life experience. And I use juicy quite often. And then I opened it up like, oh, there's juicy. Yes. I was so
I think
excited
that
to do
what
that.
makes your life juicy, what
Yep.
makes your life juicy. So yeah, like a peach or a mango, or
Yep.
whatever. So, but see, you saying you open to that and how it resonated for you, that's what I'm hoping for readers.
Yep.
That's what I'm hoping for. And that's what, before it was published, I would do it before a class or with a clinic client, or my apprentices would come. And we were always, myself included, like kind of flipped out at how uncannily that it would
Love that.
resonate.
Yeah.
So I did do, and I loved learning this word bibliomancy, which means when you open a book, ask for a message and open a book and see what's there for you.
Beautiful. I
I
love
always
that.
did it. I didn't know it had a word.
No,
So
I
there's
didn't know
the
it
word.
had a word either. I've done it always. Never known
Isn't
it
that
had
fun?
words. That's
It's
fantastic.
bibliomancy.
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 I
Love it.
love it.
So I did a little bibliomancy, literally the second before we started talking
Mm,
today. And I opened to a picture of a woman's face with chamomile,
mm,
kind of draped around her. And the wisdom of this page is, and so for you listening, it's basically each page has like a line or two of the main, you know, thought, and then a little explanatory words underneath
mm.
it. So the main section is: believing is something you do, knowledge is something you gain, wisdom is something you have.
Oh, how perfect for this conversation, I will say. Because I
Felt
think
like,
this is so often, this is what we've been talking about today, is how to allow that wisdom to flow from you rather than the pursuit or the push for it. It's that integral rising up, isn't it?
yeah, and making space too, right? Because you
Making
have
space for
to
it.
release. And this is, I think, why so many people are afraid to grow and change and evolve, because it means to let go of beliefs that have been
Mhm.
held, even if you know in your heart of hearts they're not true. And it's that clinging to the familiar. I mean, it could be something as basic as, like, you know, you can hold a belief that's so self-limiting, like, well, I don't really deserve goodness
Mm,
or abundance or prosperity or something. And you might know intellectually that that's not true, or I don't deserve to be treated well, right? Like a
mm,
really, deep thing like that. And you might know intellectually it's true, but it's what you're familiar with. It's what you've, taken
mhm.
in. The further like explanation on the page says you might feel pressure to defend a belief you hold dear. Like knowledge, belief implies something external, separate from you. Wisdom, once earned, is inside you. It can't be taken from you.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah. Right. But there
And
is that has to
wis
be earned.
and I wonder if wisdom ever needs to be defended,
No, no, it doesn't. And that's the beauty. That's the liberation that comes with
isn't it?
knowing who you really are, right? Like, so somebody can write something nasty about, the way it's just, I think they said, repent or perish, right? And there was
I've had
like
comments like that. I know. Yeah.
like I thought about writing about that wonderful line as a rebuttal, that they taught
Mm,
us to fear
it's,
the people who who burn the witches rather than the people who burn them. And I thought, well, if I do write that, it will only be for the people who see that comment and are distressed by
mhm.
it. That person does not yet have space
No.
to hear, right? And so, but when I was a younger green witch, a younger herbalist, right, there was that kind of desire to prove that
Yes.
what I knew, but it was what I believed in, right? And that belief, it's a separate thing, that what I believed in had validity, that, that trees listen, that it had validity, that that rosemary helps your circulation, that it had validity, right?
Hmm.
That it was real, right?
Hmm.
And I watch a lot of my students of all ages, they don't have to be young students, right? Go through this as they meet resistance in their families or in the, with their doctor, whatever. Um, but I think you have to, if you're going to open doors to a way of being that is not, you know, the norm,
Hmm.
there is a certain amount of making friends with discomfort that it behooves you to do.
It does.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know,
And you have to
that
challenge your own beliefs continually to welcome the new sprouts cracking up through your own concrete. There you go.
precisely, exactly.
Yeah,
There it is. We're always learning. So yeah, so I'm hoping this book helps people. I opened
100%.
to another one that I love for myself too, which is this one came from June, my first teacher. Don't should on yourself.
Oh, I saw that one. I love that. Yes. Yes,
Should takes away
absolutely.
autonomy and robs you of energy. Try could. I should return that call. I could return that call.
Mm,
I should apologize to him. I could apologize to him, right? It's
what a
a different,
difference.
it lands, and there we come back to the body.
Yeah.
How you listening, consider how things land in your body,
Yeah.
right? Because your body will give you the yes and the no and the little by little, because that's another listening, right? Christina, you have to
Yep.
learn how your body communicates to you. You have to learn what your symbols and your signals are. And, witchy magic is like the icing on the cake in a way, right?
Yeah.
It can be really helpful to remind you that reality is the most magical thing there is.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I think I think that's a profound note for everyone to kind of just let that to simmer, because yeah, I think that that's an important piece for everyone to remember. I got to say, this has been a fantastic conversation, and I love it. I could talk to you forever,
Maybe we'll
but
do it again sometime, yeah?
we'll have to do that. I want to make sure everyone knows your website. So you have a new website.
I
Yes.
do. I have my main website is robinrosebennett.com, and
Mhm.
my brand new website, and I'm so excited,
It's
is Robin
juicy.
Yeah, it's just Robin Rose Bennett Books.
Okay.
Robin Rose Bennett Books, and that's where, I mean, I know you'll again put it in notes, but
Yep.
that's where you can pre-order Green Witch's pocketbook. You can order my other books, Healing
Good.
Magic, Green Witch
Okay.
Guidebook to Conscious Living. That was my first, and the next is Healing Magic. No, The Gift of Healing Herbs,
Oh,
Plant
beautiful.
Medicines and Home Remedies for a Vibrantly Healthy Life, and that one is filled with hundreds of simple recipes
Oh,
for
amazing.
your health, and also a lot about the spirituality of healing, of finding what is the story connected to the
Oh,
challenge you're going through, because I find that makes the healing go deeper and be more sustainable. Um, but but what I would love is, if you are interested in my work, is to sign up for my newsletter on
good.
my website. That's the best way to stay in
Okay.
touch. I do have all the other, IG and Facebook and blah blah blah. I have all that, YouTube. But the books, what I do want to emphasize is, in the month of October, I have a special that I'm offering, because it's really helpful to an author to pre-sell the books.
Mhm.
They officially go on sale October 31, and yes, that was intentional. Um,
Good.
but the pre-launch special is truly a beautiful booklet that I wrote just for this, wrote and designed, that is herbal recipes for enhancing meditation, dreams, and deepening intuitive wisdom.
Oh my goodness, that sounds phenomenal.
Yeah, so
Beautiful.
that's a giveaway for the month of October. After that, I'll sell it, right? But for
Okay, yeah,
October, it's a giveaway for ordering the book. And
amazing. Okay, brilliant. And there's all kinds of wonderful things to find on your website. And so we'll send everyone over there by all means. And we will talk again because this has been truly magical. So thank you so much. And all the
thank you.
best for your launch and your pre launch of your book. Yeah, may it be surrounded in love and light. Thank you.
Thank you too. Bye.
Bye.